J.T. Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world. They'll give you their take on the writing process and how to create the secret sauce of page-turning deliciousness. Let's get into that magical mixture of the art and science of creativity. Here's J.T. Crowley, author of The Smart Kids, and your podcast host.
Hello everyone, I'm J.T. Crowley, and I have the great pleasure today of welcoming back Dr. Penny Claus from Dallas in Texas in the United States. And this is about her third book in the Timekeepers series, Royal Stain. It's a book that I really do think that people who love dark fantasy and sci-fi followers, you're going to love this book because it just fits your genre, guys. It just fits everything about it, the figures that are in it, the characters in there, the storyline. So enjoy the third book, everybody. But if you haven't read the first two, you need to read the first two. Now, Dr. Penny is a veterinary surgeon by profession, but has been writing books for some time now. So if you go to her webpage, authorpclaus.com, there you'll find more about the book Dr. Penny Claus has written and how to get hold of them. But for the purpose of today's show, we're going to talk about her latest book, Royal Stain. Now, you might be sitting there, everybody, and you'll see, well, hang on here, there are two people sitting side by side. You're absolutely right. You're not getting double vision, so you don't have to go off to the opticians. We have brought in on this podcast Penny's daughter, Stephanie. And why have we done that? Well, I'll reveal that in a minute. But Penny, Stephanie, come and join me on the show.
Hi, John. Good to see you again. It's always a pleasure.
And for the first time, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
You're welcome. Now, the reason why Stephanie is sitting next to Dr. Penny Claus is because when you look at the book cover, well, Stephanie has designed the book cover. Talk to me, Stephanie, about the book cover. How did you put it all together? Because it's very, mystique, it's dark, it's sinister, and I think it really sums the book up. It's cleverly done. What's your version here?
I wish I could say that it's something fantastical that, I had thought about it for a long time and, really looked for images, stuff like that. I didn't. It was very simple. I knew a vision I had in my head of what I thought it should look like, and I had 3 covers in mind. So I started out with this one, actually, and I just started with the black background. I'm like, okay, I need something to represent the time part of it. So I customized the font for the Time Stealers, and I started with that. And if you look at the title, you see the T, both T's on there. They are clock hands facing down. And I started with that. I'm like, okay, I need something else to represent this. So I started looking, and I needed to get I was looking for a watch, a pocket watch, specifically a pocket watch, because I remembered that the pocket watches were the ones that carried the evil wraiths, correct? So I put that on there, and I was like, it needs something else. And I had this vision in my head of a movie I saw many years ago. Unfortunately, I can't remember which one, but it was a pair of eyes staring at the person, almost directly, like it was looking into their soul. And it had like that kind of fade into the background look. And I'm like, that's what I want. So I just looked up an image of someone just an image of just a person. Nothing in particular. I was just looking for a person. I think I put in angry eyes, and it came up with this photo. And I was like, at the instant I saw it, I knew that was it. I had to use it. So I took it, I did a little Photoshop tinkering around and compiled it, played with some of the placement, and sent it to her to see what she thought.
Because my first impression of it when I saw it, I just thought powerful, sinister. It just sets the scene for the story, dark and sinister. Yeah, so well done, you. Are you going to be thinking now? Oh, shall I do any covers for anybody else now? This is a new venture for Stephanie.
I'm always taking commissions. I don't really. It's not something I do full time. I do have a full-time job, but it is something I like to do on the side. It's something that I like to do in my free time. And I mean, if I really click with something like I did with this particular cover, then it's very easy to do. And I find that's where I get a lot of inspiration, is when I really click with something.
Great. Dr. Penny, it was August last year when we did your first podcast. And of course, that's when we talked about the first two books in the series, The Timekeeper's Chronicles, Book 1, and of course, Hope Eternal, Book 2. And I'm just thinking, we're not quite a year on. Here we are with Book 3, The Royal Stain.
Mm-hmm.
How have you, in that short time, because yes, we've been chatting over the months, talking to each other about all sorts of things. How have you put this magical book of yours together in such a short time?
Actually, it had been a little bit longer than that. It was in the works when we talked last time. It wasn't completed yet. I was having a hard time getting it completed. I had been working on it before the pandemic hit, and I used the regional meetings, for the NAWCC for inspiration. We'd get a table. I'd have my books there, to talk to people and sell. And, I would use that time, to just soak in the atmosphere and see what was out there, the many different types of clocks. There's a music box exhibit that was part of the inspiration for this story. Of course, the pocket watches that we see, there's so much there at those shows, and they're just fascinating. So not having that, because we didn't have those meetings, during the pandemic, it was hard to pull it together. But I was able to finally get some traction going. And that's when I finalized the book earlier this year. And then, was just trying to figure out how I was going to get it out to the public. And that finally settled on where we are now.
Yeah, and I get that. Now, you're a busy vet. So when do you decide to write? Are you one of these people, Dr. Penny, that's you write first thing in the morning, or you write late at night? Or are you a bit like me? It's whenever the moment arises and you just sit down and open up the laptop and spill what's going on, behind the glasses, what's going on in your head onto the computer.
Yeah. It's like you, just whenever it hits. Sometimes I'm at work and the gears start going, I start picking up threads and start, and I'm doing my job in the background, especially if I have a moment. Sometimes I'll make notes when I'm at work, just so I don't lose that, inspiration, but yeah, I can't just sit down at a laptop and not have somewhere to go, or what to write, because I'll just stare at it. And that's the most frustrating thing. But if it starts to flow, then that's when I will, I'll sit at the laptop and I'll either work on it for hours, or it'll be just enough to get those ideas down that have been percolating. And then it'd be like, okay, I'm going to have to let this sit a while and then revisit it.
So you're not one of those authors that sets out, I've got to do 1,000 words a day.
I can't do that.
I can't do it either.
Because, if I did that, it wouldn't be right. I mean, I have tried that technique, and I'd go back and read it. It's like, oh, this was so bad, because it was forced,
Yeah.
and you can tell it's forced. It has to flow, So yeah, that technique does not work for me.
Because you have to enjoy writing it, don't you?
Exactly.
And if it becomes a
Exactly.
chore, it doesn't,
Yeah,
it comes across. Yeah.
it really does.
Penny, there are 40 chapters to this dark fantasy book of yours. Can you just remind everybody who Charlotte and Grant Stone are and how you went about creating these characters? Let's just go back a bit so that we can go forward with this new book. Grant and Charlotte.
Grant and Charlotte, when the inspiration for the story came, I needed a very well rounded character already, that kind of knew what was going on, that could instruct somebody else that into this world of time wraiths and how they live in antique clocks and stuff like that. So I try to choose a very strong name and something simple, something easy to remember. And I didn't have any particular person in mind, when the character started to form. He just kind of, in just writing it, he just kind of came out of, sometimes characters kind of form themselves, it seems.
They develop as they go along.
Exactly. And that's kind of how it was with him and Charlotte. And I needed him to be kind of have an ancient wisdom and knowledge, but yet look like he's in his middle age, Yes. And I explain how that happens, in the stories. And then Charlotte, she's seeing these wraiths. She doesn't know what they are. And she's always seen them all her life, and nobody ever was there to help her with it, to instruct her on what she was seeing, and she wasn't crazy until one night she just had to run to somebody, and for whatever reason she was attracted to Grant in his clock shop. She knew of him through her grandfather.
Yeah.
And so I have a younger kind of woman, early 20s, who is just frantic and knowing she needs to know, is she crazy or not? And so she's drawn to him. And of course, he's at first skeptical about what she wants, but then he's able to kind of walk her through what they do, and the loosely associated group of keepers that are worldwide that can see and interact with the wraiths.
Because they are the timekeepers, aren't they?
They are the timekeepers.
They're the timekeepers, everybody. You gave Charlotte and Grant, now in this book, everybody, the third book, you gave Charlotte and Grant a child.
Yes.
Nicknamed LG, who comes into the storyline in chapter 4. Why did you give LG these extrasensory powers? And you also gave him a very, very strong time wraith, a young time wraith, Chan. And that time wraith is a very significant time wraith in the book.
Yes. Yes.
Talk to me about these characters. How do they come about? What and the storylines that you built them? Why? Talk to me about this.
Well, I needed a newcomer into the story to advance the story. I mean, you have to have new elements coming into play to keep interest and to build the world up more. And so, of course, Grant and Charlotte, they're married now. What's the most natural thing to happen, is to have a child. Now, they had no idea if their child was going to have any ability, because Grant, of course, we know he's been part of the keeper community, which are all male. What's different about Charlotte is she's the only woman that has emerged to have full keeper abilities. So would that pass on, to their child? Well, as it comes about, yes, it does. And because of that, because he's one that is the child of two keepers, he does have more abilities than they could ever dream of. Even the race, didn't understand all